Think about the last funeral you attended. There was probably a ceremony, specific clothes you were expected to wear, words spoken in a particular order by someone whose job it is to say them, flowers, a box made of wood that costs more than most people's first car, music chosen specifically because the deceased either loved it or because it felt appropriate to the occasion, food afterward for reasons nobody can quite explain but everyone follows anyway. All of it designed to do one thing: help the living process, the fact that someone is gone and is not coming back. Now strip all of that away. No ceremony, no words, no flowers, no box, no cultural script telling you what to feel or how to behave or what any of it means. No concept of heaven or afterlife or continuation of any kind. No language sophisticated enough to even ask the question of what just happened. Just you, 100,000 years ago, standing over a body that used to be a person you knew, someone who was here yesterday and is not here now, someone who is not moving, someone who is, in every observable way, simply absent from themselves. What do you do? The answer is one of the most important and least discussed stories in the entire history of our species. Most animals do not have a problem with death. They have reactions to it. A dog will sniff a dead companion and nudge it repeatedly, trying to provoke a response. Elephants will stand near the bones of their dead for hours, touching them gently with their trunks, in a behavior that researchers describe carefully as resembling mourning. Chimpanzees have been observed carrying the bodies of dead infants for days, sometimes weeks, before finally setting them down. Crows hold what appear to be gatherings around dead crows, a behavior that researchers believe may serve as a social warning about local dangers. But none of these animals, as far as we can tell, understand what death is. They respond to the absence. They react to the stillness, the wrongness, the thing that is no longer the thing it was. But the conceptual leap, the understanding that the absence is permanent, that the individual who was there will never come back, and therefore that you yourself will also one day cease to exist. That leap requires something most brains on Earth have never made. It requires a theory of mind sophisticated enough to model your own non-existence. This is genuinely hard to do. Think about it for a moment. To understand death, you have to be able to imagine yourself not being there. You have to be able to model a future in which you, the thing doing the modeling, is simply absent. You have to understand continuity well enough to grasp its ending. Humans do this so automatically that we forget what an extraordinary cognitive achievement it represents. We forget that somewhere in our evolutionary past, there was a first time, a first individual, or a first generation, for whom the death of someone close wasn't just a confusing absence, but a comprehended ending. And when that happened, everything changed. In 2015, a team of researchers crawling through a cave system called Rising Star in South Africa discovered something extraordinary in a chamber so deep and so narrow that only small, specifically recruited cavers could reach it. Bones, hundreds of them, belonging to at least 15 individuals of a species called Homo naledi, an early human relative that lived roughly 250,000 to 300,000 years ago. What made the discovery remarkable wasn't the bones. It was the location. The chamber was not a place where bodies would end up by accident. There were no predator marks, no evidence of flooding that might have carried remains there, no signs of any ordinary depositional process that would explain 15 individuals lying in a chamber that required deliberate, difficult navigation to reach. The researchers reached a conclusion that remains controversial but has not been convincingly refuted. Homo naledi was intentionally depositing its dead in that chamber, carrying them there, placing them. Homo naledi had a brain roughly a third the size of yours. Before that discovery, the conventional wisdom held that deliberate burial was something only fully modern Homo sapiens did, and only relatively recently. Rising Star pushed the evidence for intentional treatment of the dead back further than almost anyone had expected, and attached it to a species with far less cognitive complexity than scientists had assumed was necessary. Even earlier, at a site in Spain called Cima de los Huesos, the pit of bones, researchers found the remains of at least 28 individuals of an early human species dating to roughly 430,000 years ago. The bones showed no signs of butchery or consumption. They had apparently been deliberately thrown or placed into a pit. A single beautifully crafted hand axe made of striking red quartzite was found among them. It had never been used as a tool. Researchers named it Excalibur. Nobody knows exactly what it meant, but it was clearly not accidental. Something was happening. Long before modern humans, long before language as we understand it, long before any religious or philosophical framework we could recognize, something was happening with the dead. But rituals come later. Rituals require repetition, shared understanding, cultural transmission. They require language, or at least something close to it. Before any of that, there was just the moment. The first moment a human mind that was sophisticated enough to understand what death meant came face to face with it. Imagine it. You're a member of a small group, 20 or 30 people in a landscape that is trying to kill you in 100 different ways on any given day. One of your group, someone you have lived beside, traveled with, relied on, perhaps loved in whatever way humans loved each other before the word for it existed, simply stops. The body is still there. It looks like the person. It has the same face, the same hands, the same hair, but there is nothing happening inside it. The eyes are open, but they are not seeing, the chest is still, the warmth is leaving, and if you are a human brain of sufficient complexity, which by at least 300,000 years ago, and possibly much earlier, our ancestors were, you understand something that no other animal around you understands. This is not temporary. This is not sleep. This is not an absence you can wait out. Whatever the person was, the thing that made them that person is gone, and it is not coming back. You feel something that we would now call grief. The research on grief's neurological signatures suggests it is not a single emotion, but a cluster, shock-searching behavior. Protest, despair. A system designed by evolution not to process loss, but to find the lost thing, to reverse the loss, to refuse it. The grief system is not built for death. It is built for separation that can be resolved. When it hits an irreversible loss, it runs its program over and over, looking for a solution that doesn't exist. The body is right there. The person is gone. Your brain cannot reconcile this. It keeps looking. There is a second thought that follows the first, and this one is darker. If they are gone, and if they were like me, then I will also be gone. This is the thought that makes human death different from any other animal's death. This is the thought that no other species on Earth, as far as we know, has ever had. The application of another's death to oneself. The extrapolation from their ending to your own. Psychologists have a name for the cultural and behavioral consequences of this thought. Terror management theory developed by Jeff Greenberg, Sheldon Solomon, and Tom Piaseczynski in the 1980s proposes that a significant portion of human culture, religion, art, ambition, and social behavior can be understood as an ongoing response to this single, unavoidable, uniquely human terror, the awareness that you will die, and the need to do something about it, or at least around it, or at least alongside it. That makes the living of the life between now and then feel meaningful rather than pointless. The first burial is under this lens, not just a practical decision about what to do with a body. It is the first recorded act of a species trying to make death mean something, trying to give the ending a form, trying to create against the void something that says, this person was here, and their being here mattered, and the manner of their leaving will reflect that. The hand axe at Cima de los Huesos, never used, placed with the dead 430,000 years ago, is perhaps the oldest known object placed in a grave. We do not know what it meant to the people who put it there. We will never know. But they put it there deliberately, which means it meant something, which means they were already doing what humans have never stopped doing since, insisting against all evidence that death is not simply an ending. The archaeological record, pieced together from dozens of sites across 3 continents, suggests that early humans responded to death in several distinct ways that emerged at different points in our prehistory. The first was simply staying. Before burial, before ritual, the most basic response appears to have been remaining near the body, not running from it, not abandoning it, staying. The social bonds that made group living possible didn't immediately dissolve at death. The attachment to the individual persisted past the point of their dying. Groups camped near their dead. Individuals returned to places where others had died. This behavior, documented in modern hunter-gatherer communities and extrapolated from site patterns, suggests that the first human response to death was refusal to immediately accept the separation. The second was protection. Evidence suggests early humans began protecting bodies from scavengers before they began formally burying them, covering with rocks, branches, debris, not yet a grave, but something, a boundary between the person and the world that had not yet been asked permission to take them. The third, much later and more recognizable to us, was burial. The deliberate placing of a body in the ground, often with objects, often in a specific orientation, often with evidence of ceremony around it. The oldest unambiguous Homo sapiens burials are around 100,000 years old, from sites in Israel and South Africa. But the precursors to this behavior extend much, much further back, as Rising Star and Cima de los Huesos demonstrate. And woven through all of it, from the earliest evidence forward, is something that has no purely practical explanation. The bodies were not discarded. They were not left where they fell and walked away from. They were tended to, moved, arranged, accompanied. Flowers, possibly at Shani Dark Cave in Iraq, where Neanderthal remains were found with pollen deposits suggesting blooms had been placed with the body, a finding still debated but never fully dismissed. Red ochre, the earliest known pigment found in burial contexts across multiple sites, painted onto bones, mixed with the dead. Color brought to the ending. Someone thought the moment deserved color. Here is what strikes me most when I sit with all of this. The response of ancient humans to the first dead body was not, at its core, about the dead. It was about the living. Every behavior we can document, the staying, the protecting, the placing, the objects, the ochre, the flowers, all of it was done by people who were still breathing. People who had watched someone stop breathing and had then made a series of choices about what that meant and what it required of them. Those choices, made by people with no cultural script and no religious framework and no philosophical tradition to draw on, invented something. They invented, out of raw grief and terror and love and the desperate need for meaning, the thing we now call mourning. Every funeral that has ever happened since is a direct descendant of those first choices. Every gravestone, every eulogy, every flower left on a tomb, every moment of silence, every candle lit, every name carved into a wall. All of it traces back to some early human who stood over someone they loved, understood for the first time that the someone was gone and was not coming back, and decided that this moment was too important to walk away from. We have been standing there ever since. We have never quite left.